In this video, I'm going to show you how to use a free tool to record your weekly lecture, complete with slides for divisions and principles with no video editing required for a quick and easy workflow. Let's get into it. Hey BSF leaders, Chris Pyron here. I am an administrative leader with the Tulsa Men's Group, and I don't think any of us could have expected the kickoff to the Genesis study to look like it has this fall. But I am super happy and super thankful for video and technologies like Zoom that have allowed us to still gather together and have connection time with our groups. Now, if you're a teaching leader or a substitute teaching leader, recording your lecture on your phone and then adding in slides in a video editor and then compressing and converting the files and then uploading them to mybsf.org can be very time-consuming and challenging, especially if this is your first time jumping into video. So to simplify that process, I would like to introduce you to OBS, Open Broadcaster Software. OBS is a free cross-platform software for video recording and streaming with source select and capture. Wait, what was all of that? Okay, let's break it down. OBS is free, the best price out there, right? Cross-platform, meaning that it can run on most any computer out there, whether it be Windows, Mac, or even Linux. Source selection. You can set up multiple sources, like the built-in camera on your laptop, or an external camera, or the slides from a PowerPoint presentation, and then switch between those in real time, recording that to a file that you can then upload directly to the lecture section on mybsf.org. Let's spin around to the computer and go through how I like to set up OBS for recording a presentation using PowerPoint or Keynote slides. Okay, we're here at the computer, but before we get into installing and configuring OBS and all of that, there's a little bit of prep work that we need to do first with our presentation file, whether it's our Keynote file or our PowerPoint file, whatever our presentation media is. We need to do a little bit of work with that to make sure that it is ready to import and be shown in OBS for our lecture recording. So I'm going to be showing you an example with Keynote. The first thing we want to do is make sure that the presentation is formatted for a widescreen output, 16:9 or 1920 by 1080 is another way you can look at it. That's what we know as full 1080 HD or widescreen format is what we're going to be looking for here. You don't want to do a 4:3 ratio. I think in PowerPoint it shows 4:3, 16:9, 16:10. Ultimately, you want to make sure that your presentation is configured in 16:9. Okay, so now that we have our lecture laid out and we have our slides built, this one happens to only be 3 slides. I had a division slide for the 2 divisions and then 1 principle to go along with each of the divisions. So the entire presentation is only 3 slides in Keynote. What we want to do now is export the presentation out to a series of images that we can then use in OBS. JPEG happens to be the most versatile format, so I would suggest exporting out to JPEGs, whether you're doing this through Keynote or PowerPoint. It's a similar process. So I'm going to export those out. I'm going to stick those somewhere though where I know I can find them easily. So I'm going to put them on my desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder here, and I'm going to call it BSF Lecture Genesis Week 2, let's say. And then I'm going to let that put all of those files in that folder on my desktop. So now that we have our JPEGs exported to a folder on our desktop, now we can set up OBS. So first we want to head to obsproject.com, or you can go to Google and search for OBS Studio. That will take you to the home page. Across the top there, you'll see the 3 installers for the 3 operating systems. So select the one for your operating system. Go ahead and download that installer file, and then go find the installer, run the installation program, and then we can open up OBS for the first time. So let's open up OBS for the first time, and when it opens up, it's going to look like this. You'll have a big black square and a bunch of stuff down here. Let's do a quick overview of what we're looking at. This big black area here is actually your preview window. It's going to show you exactly what it is that you are recording. The scenes section down here, for your scenes, you want to think of these as the different things or items that you want to show in your recording, whether it be your webcam or the slides from Keynote or PowerPoint that we were working with earlier. So next up is sources. Sources make up the scene. That way you could have multiple things layered together in a scene if you wanted to, and I have another video about that, but that's beyond the scope of today's video. Next up is audio mixer. This is where you'll see all of your audio levels from your microphone. Now this is most likely going to be your laptop's built-in mic, or if you do have an external microphone, it would show up here as well. But this is where you can see if you are getting audio into the computer for recording. Scene transitions is how you are going to transition from scene to scene when you have multiple scenes set up. This could either be cut or fade. I usually leave it on fade with 300 milliseconds as the time duration. It works for most applications that I need it for, so I just leave the default settings as they are. So the control section is the last piece over here. We have the streaming button. We're not going to be getting into that today. We're most interested in using the recording features of OBS. So this is where you would start and stop your recording. Studio mode switches the viewer up here to where you can have what you're actually recording and previewing something else. Again, 9 times out of 10, I run it in this mode with just a single screen up so that I can see what it is that I'm recording and sending out. And then settings, there's tons of stuff under here. We are going to look at a couple of those things, but only a couple. We're not going to dig into the settings super deep. And then exit obviously exits and closes the program. So first things first, let's check a couple of those settings out in the settings menu that I was talking about earlier. So when we go into settings, the things we're most interested in are what's under the output tab. The first thing we want to check out here is under recording, the recording path. Make a note of this and where it is recording to, or if you want to change it to make it easier to find the files, you can. I like to put a folder on my desktop to where it's really quick and easy to find. So in order to do that, you just click on Browse and tell it where you want the folder to go. So I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to make a new folder here, and I'm going to call this BSF Lecture Recordings and create that folder and hit open. Now everything that I record in here is going to record to my desktop to that BSF Lecture Recordings folder that I just made. So the next thing I look at is recording quality. I leave that set to same as stream. I'm not going to dive into all the details behind what that is and what that means, but know that that means that the quality is appropriate and the file sizes will be right to upload to mybsf.org in the lecture section. The last thing on the output tab that we want to check is recording format. More than likely, this is going to be default setting to MKV, which is not a video format that we want to use for uploading to mybsf.org. So we want to change that to MP4. You will see this warning pop up down here. Don't worry about that. We're not going to be at a point where we're trying to pause in the middle of recording and pick it up and keep it going again. So same as stream and MP4 are the settings that we want to see under record quality and recording format in this part. At this point, we can hit apply and then OK, and that takes us back out to our main window where we can now start setting up our scenes and our sources. Okay, now we're going to start setting up our scenes in OBS. And remember, scenes are the individual elements that we want to have shown on the screen during our presentation. So this will come with a default scene loaded in here already called scene. I like to give these friendly names so I know what they are instead of scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. I like to name them what they are so when I click on it I know exactly what it is. So I'm going to right click on this and rename it and call it camera. So I know when I click on this, this is going to be showing my camera and recording the feed from my camera, whether it's my webcam or an external cam or whatever. So remember, sources go into scenes. So when I click on camera, what do I want to see? Well, I want to see my webcam. So I'm going to click the plus button here to add a source to this scene. Now when I click on that, I'm going to get a drop down with a whole bunch of different options of things that I can add in here. In the case of adding a camera, I want to add a video capture device. Now this is a built-in webcam on your laptop or an external camera like this one, or I've got an external webcam over here that we'll use as an example in a moment. So I'm going to add a video capture device and then I can give it a name. In this case, I'm going to call it MacBook camera. Let's just call it MacBook camera. This will be the one that's built into the screen of my MacBook. This will open up the properties window for that. You have a device with a drop-down menu. When you click on this, it's going to show you all the devices you have available on your system. I have the Logitech webcam C930 as an available option. I also have my FaceTime HD camera. This is most likely what you're going to see on, if you are using a laptop, you're going to see the camera that's integrated into the display on your computer. So let's just go ahead and grab that one for now, and you'll see here I am. Real quick pro tip on this point, if you can get your camera up to your eye level or maybe just a hair above, It's a much more flattering angle for folks. It's not something a lot of us think about, but if you can, any way you can get your laptop up higher is great. You can stack it on books, on shoe boxes. If you have a laptop riser, that's great. I've used all kinds of weird stuff underneath my computer before to get it up to eye level, because this image isn't nearly as flattering, I think, as this one is, where this camera is actually well below my eye level, and this one is up at eye level, actually just a hair above for this camera. So anyway, once we have our video input in here, then we can, I just go ahead and leave the defaults here, use preset 1280 by 720, it's fine. It doesn't have to be a full 1080 if your camera doesn't support 1080. So once you see an image here and you can see yourself, then just go ahead and click OK. And now you see your webcam displayed in the output window. But it isn't full screen, it's just up here in the corner. So you can grab this handle here and stretch this all the way out to where it snaps into full screen. And now you have full screen camera showing just your face. Now that we have the video piece nailed, we need to add in an audio component so that we can ensure that our voice is heard clearly while we're recording our lecture. So a video piece is under sources. Now we need to add an audio source. So again, we're going to come down here to add. And again, our drop down pops up and we have audio input capture as an option. So I'm going to select that because I want to add an audio device. And I'm going to name it MacBook mic because there's a microphone built into my laptop. So I'm going to go ahead and use that and hit OK. Again, we get a properties window that pops up asking us what device we want to use. So I'm going to hit the drop down here. I have a handful of different audio devices plugged into my computer right now. But I'm going to go ahead and just pick MacBook Pro microphone and then come down here and select OK. Now you'll notice something changed. All of a sudden now down here we have audio meter. Remember we looked at this audio mixer area earlier. This is now showing me that my voice is being picked up by my MacBook microphone right here and is metering pretty well. You know, it's in that green to yellow zone, which is kind of where we like to see it most of the time. So that's a good spot to be as far as audio levels go. But this ensures that the computer is hearing me, and when I push the record button here, that it will not only record my video for my face, but it will also be recording my voice as well. Now I've swapped cameras from the camera that's integrated into the lid of my MacBook Pro to an external Logitech webcam I have mounted just above my computer screen. So we're going to go ahead and use this one here for the rest of the tutorial. So now that we have our camera in, we want to add in our first division slide because that's going to be the next thing that we need to switch to on our recording. So I'm going to click Add, and we're going to add a new scene, and then we're going to get to enter the name of the scene, in which case I'm going to call Divisions. So we're going to add our divisions scene. Now, what do we want our division scene to have in it? Well, we want our division scene to have our division slide. So this is where we go back to the work that we did earlier with exporting our Keynote or our PowerPoint file to JPEGs. This is why. So we can now bring them back in here as images that we can then select for recording out. So now I'm going to go in and add a source to my division scene, but what do I want to add? In this case, I'm just going to tell it to add an image right here. Create new. I'll call this one division slide. How about, because that's actually what the image is, divisions slide, and hit OK. Now I have a preview window and it's asking me what image file I want to show. Well, remember earlier we put all these files over here on our desktop when we exported everything out. So now I'm going to just browse to that folder on my desktop where we have BSF Lecture Genesis Week 2. And then I'm going to select my first slide, slide 001, because I know 001 is my first division slide that I need. And then click Open. And here's my division slide, and it even looks like it's already full screened. Because we set up the presentation to be 1920 by 1080, that allows this to be full screen since the default resolution in OBS is 1080. So now that we know this is in here, we can click OK, and we now have our division slide showing up full screen under our division scene. So we can go back to our camera, and here we are with our camera, and then we can go to divisions, and just click on what we need and what we want. Now when we are recording, this output that we're seeing switching back and forth is what is going to be recorded. But one thing we want to check for here is on the division slide, if we notice all of a sudden our audio mixer is very much empty. We just need to copy our audio source from the camera the camera scene that we have here as our sources. So here under sources, we have the camera shows camera, and this little microphone means it's a microphone. So that's our audio device. So all I want to do is right click on this and tell it to copy. And then we'll go back to our division slide where we saw our audio just disappear again. And under sources, I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste the reference. Paste reference means that any changes that I make to it here on this scene will automatically track. So if I turn this all the way down here, there's obviously no volume there. And I go back to divisions, there's still no volume there. So that way this never changes regardless of what scene we have. So that's what pasting reference means. That means that it is pasting a reference from the first instance that it saw earlier. Now that we have our division slide in here, let's go ahead and build in our principal slides then as well. I would build those in as an additional scene for each principal so they're easy to select when we need to. So I'm going to add a new scene. I'm going to call it Principal 1. It helps if I can type Principal 1. Hit OK. So we have Principal 1, but I don't have any sources, but I do know I have an image file, a JPEG that I exported earlier that I can use as my source for this. So I'm going to click the plus sign. I'm going to come down to Image. And I'm going to call this Principal 1. Oh, it doesn't like that because I already named it. So I do Principal 1 slide. How about? There we go. And then this is our same browser window we saw before. We click Browse. And then slide number 2 in our presentation was actually Principal 1. So I'm going to select that, open it, and here's our first principal. Again, because we formatted Keynote as 1080, it's already full screen for us. So now I don't have any audio. I have it for divisions. It's still hearing me talk here in divisions, but it's not hearing me in principals. So I can go to divisions. Here's our microphone again, the little microphone logo that we see. Right click on this guy, copy it, go to principal, and then paste the reference. And now we have our audio showing up. So again, no matter which scene we switch to, we will be getting audio recorded the whole time. Now we have a second principal that we need to add in. So we're going to do the exact same process again. We're going to add a new scene. We will call it Principal 2. Okay. And then we need to add in our image file into our sources. So we'll go add image. Then we will call this one Principal 2 slide. Now we get our properties for Principal 2 slide again. We hit browse. What image file do we want? And we want slide number 3 out of our presentation was Principal number 2. So we hit open. Here it is full screen, hit OK. Now we have Principal 2 here with our full screen image, but again, we're missing audio. So go back to the scene before, copy, and then paste it onto Principal 2. Now you have audio on Principal 2. Now that everything is set up, it's as simple as just clicking on the scene that you want to be able to make that change. And because we have the scene transition set up here with a 30 millisecond fade, it's just a nice smooth crossfade from one scene to the next. And that's it. Everything is now set up in OBS to do your first recording. And before you dive into your first presentation, I would suggest doing a test record first to make sure that your audio sounds good, your video looks like you want it to, and that the scene switching to your divisions and principals is working the way you want it to as well. So to do that, I'm going to click Start Recording, and you'll notice a little red dot pops up here that shows that recording is active, and then a timer that starts showing you how long you have been recording for. And then from there, I will switch between my camera feed and then my slides and make sure that I'm talking over the slides to ensure that I still have audio going on all of those and I didn't accidentally forget to copy and paste the audio input here from earlier. And that allows me to double check every scene within my presentation before I do a long recording to make sure that it's all going to work the way that I want it to. Now that I've recorded for 30 to 60 seconds and have done switching back and forth between all of my inputs, I'm going to go ahead and hit stop recording. Now we need to go back and watch that file to make sure that everything looks like we want it to. In my case, this is in the BSF lecture recordings folder that we set up earlier. If you left it as the default, you would need to go to that default recording location to check for that. So I'll open this up and look at the recording that we just made. and watch that and listen to it and make sure that it looks like I want it to and that it sounds like I want to. I actually have the audio turned off here, but I should.
Recorded for a little.
So we do have audio on it too, so I was able to hear myself talk, so that was good. And I should see some slides switching here in a little bit as well. Yep, see the slides are switching. Go back to see my face here in a minute with the camera, and there we go. So we know that it looks like I want it to, and it sounds like I want it to. So now I'm ready to record my first presentation. And that's it. Now you should be good to go. Now, if something didn't work out quite right, go ahead and rewind this video and double check the settings in each step to make sure that they match. And if you did get it to work, great, congratulations. Now you're ready to record your lecture and upload it to mybsf.org. If you found value in this video, please feel free to share it with other leaders that you know who may be looking for a solution like this one. And if you have a specific tech question, please leave me a comment down below and I'll try and answer it in one of my upcoming videos. We'll see you next time.